This is a top 5 video I've been planning ever since I saw Deadpool and Wolverine last year. And Deadpool and Wolverine did a heartwarming tribute to the 20th Century Fox era of Marvel films, including the X-Men films and the Fantastic Four movies. And I've been thinking about doing my own top 5 list of my favorite X-Men films. The X-Men franchise has become an iconic superhero franchise through the early films, spin-off films, and prequel films. Although there are definitely films that varied in quality, some bad ones, some mediocre ones, but the great ones are truly notable. And in the early to mid-2000s, the X-Men franchise did help the comic book genre gain more popularity through the early X-Men films, the first 2 Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, and Batman Begins. And that is definitely something to give the franchise credit for. And I do want to say, like with all my lists, this list is entirely subjective and it's all my opinion. These are my personal favorite X-Men films, what I like more than others. If there isn't a film that is either not in my top 5 or a particular placement you disagree with, that is totally fine. We all have our favorite X-Men films. I'm very excited to share you my picks. I'm excited to hear your picks in the comments below. Do you have a top 5 list? If you want to rank them all, that's okay. Or your number 1 pick, let me know in the comments below. After my favorite X-Men film, I will give you my pick for what I think is the worst X-Men film, so that should be fun. And before we get into top 5 list, I have 4 honorable mentions. Here they are. First honorable mention, The Wolverine. I'm not a fan of the third act of this movie, but I think it's underrated Wolverine spin-off that definitely made up for the mistakes of X-Men Origins Wolverine, and Hugh Jackman is fantastic as always as Wolverine. Next honorable mention, Deadpool 2. I do think the first Deadpool is better and more in that film later, but I think the sequel is just as hilarious as the first, and I would say it's an even more emotional film than the first. Zazie Beetz as Domino and Josh Brolin as Cable were awesome additions, and the mid-credit scene where Deadpool goes back in time to kill the X-Men Origins Wolverine Deadpool, comedy gold right there. Next is the first X-Men, the one that started it all. A strong introduction to these characters, their unique superpowers, and also a fantastic cast, especially from Patrick Stewart as Professor X, Ian McKellen as Magneto, and of course, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. And final honorable mention, and the one you may be surprised is not in my top 5, it was close though, and that would be the most recent one, Deadpool and Wolverine. I do feel like both villains could have been improved, but this right here is fan service done right. I'm looking at you, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker and The Flash. A great, hilarious, and heartwarming story about friendship and redemption. And of course, the pitch-perfect and amusing chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. I'm so happy they gave it their all not only comedically, but emotionally as well. And this was definitely the most fun I've had at the movies last year. And without further ado, let's get into the top 5 list. Coming in at number 5 is X2, X-Men United. This is a great sequel, and just like with Spider-Man 2 a year after this film, I think it is even better than the first movie. It excellently continues the story by exploring more of these characters such as Wolverine's past and seeing more of his history with Stryker and how he got his claws, Magneto switching sides and introducing a few new cool characters here. And as always with the X-Men films, the cast are on top of their game here. From the returning players, Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, and Halle Berry I think did a much better job here than in the first film. And the new characters are equally terrific. I thought Brian Cox did a great job as Stryker. I love Lady Deathstrike. She was an awesome supporting villain. And the one who steals the show is definitely Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler. He is both badass, but I also love seeing his soft-spoken side as well. I thought Cody Smith-McPhee did a decent job in X-Men Apocalypse, but I thought Alan Cumming did a much better job as the character. And especially right in the opening scene in the White House, that scene was badass. One of my favorite openings in the X-Men franchise. Fun action, great effects, strong cast, still a great sequel to this day. Coming in at number 4 is X-Men First Class. After 2 disappointing X-Men films such as The Last Stand and Origins Wolverine, this was the awesome prequel this franchise absolutely needed. I remember seeing the trailers back in 2011. I was like, okay, this looks promising. Could this actually be good? Good? It was awesome. And after Origins Wolverine, they were planning an X-Men Origins Magneto movie, but that movie ended up in development hell. So this film explores the origins of both Professor X and Magneto, and I'd say the better for it. A fantastic combination of both of their stories without feeling overstuffed. And I feel like it was a strong balance of both of their stories of Charles and Eric. How they met, how they united as a team, and their eventual rivalry. And what made X-Men First Class so great is the director, Matthew Vaughn. And this was a year after he made Kick-Ass, such an awesome movie which definitely kicks ass. And he would go on to make an awesome spy movie, Kingsman: The Secret Service. Hell yeah. Although his films after Kingsman, doesn't have that same awesomeness. Kingsman 2 was really disappointing compared to the first. The Kingsman was a forgettable prequel, and Argyle was so bad and ridiculous. Like, what happened to Matthew Vaughn? Seriously, just... man, I wish he could make an awesome movie again someday. But regardless, he was the right director to give this franchise new energy after 2 underwhelming films. He did a great job with the action and handling these characters and giving them emotion and depth. And it's such a shame this was the only X-Men movie he has directed. And I really wish he directed another one after this. Although I hope the director of Thunderbolts does a good job with the MCU X-Men film, hearing that he's going to direct that now. But I was really hoping Matthew Vaughn would direct it. That would be awesome. Now, casting has always been a strength in the X-Men films, from Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and both Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen as Professor X and Magneto. So it would be quite difficult to try to find the right actors to play the younger versions of those 2 characters. And this film succeeded with flying colors to find the perfect casting of the younger version of those 2 characters. I feel like the marvelous chemistry between James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender really made this movie shine. James McAvoy does a fantastic job as Charles Xavier with his charisma, intelligence, and worthy leadership to where you definitely buy him as the younger version of Professor X. And from the movies he was in from the mid to late 2000s, such as Mr. Tumnus and the Chronicles of Narnia and Wanted, I like that movie. I think it's a cool, stylish action movie. I don't care what anyone says. And a few other award contender films such as The Last King of Scotland and Atonement. And this film really shows how much of a great actor James McAvoy is. But it's Michael Fassbender who just steals the show. With the tragedy of Eric being a Holocaust survivor and how much of a vengeful and persistent person he is against Shaw. This film was my introduction to Michael Fassbender, and around the time this movie came out, I did not see Inglourious Basterds. But for this film, this was a phenomenal first impression I got from Michael Fassbender. Now, I don't know if I would count Magneto as a total villain. I would say maybe bit of an anti-hero, sometimes a villain. But for a full-on villain, my favorite villain in the movies is actually Kevin Bacon as Sebastian Shaw. He was a great villain. Just how much he works perfectly as Eric's target for revenge, and he made for a powerful villain as well. My God, Kevin Bacon just owned this role. And I also want to give credit to composer Henry Jackman for his terrific score here, especially for Magneto's theme when he's in the pub. What a badass scene, especially with the line, "I'm Frankenstein's monster, and I'm looking for my creator." Love that moment. The more I rewatch this movie holds up phenomenally. From its exciting action, good effects, strong heart, and emotion. And of course, a fantastic cast to go along with that, minus Emma Frost, who was the weak link of the cast. But everyone else did a great job. This would be my pick for my favorite superhero film of 2011. And we had 2 other good MCU origin stories around that summer and time, such as Thor and Captain America the First Avenger. But this was definitely my favorite of the bunch and way better than the Green Lantern movie that came out 2 weeks after that movie. And it would be in my top 15 favorite films of 2011. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, Wolverine's cameo, brilliant. Just love it. Comedy gold right there. Coming in at number 3 is Deadpool. After 20th Century Fox did Ryan Reynolds dirty at his first attempt at playing Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine in a horribly inaccurate way, in 2016, he made the absolute most of his second chance and got the character right. And the first Deadpool is definitely one of my favorite superhero origin stories. From how unique this movie was at the time, making jabs to other superhero movies and its fourth wall meta humor, clever marketing, and this movie was a huge success for R-rated comic book movies. And you know what I'm gonna say here? Ryan Reynolds, he was freaking born to play Deadpool. Like, seriously. Who else could have played Deadpool? And this man has been wanting to make a Deadpool movie for so long, since 2005. And again, he tried in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Well, that didn't go too well. And watching this movie, you can clearly see how much Ryan Reynolds is enjoying every single second of playing this character and just committing himself to everything. He was born to play Deadpool, and it's one of my favorite superhero movie castings. I would say for superhero level casting, he is on par with Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark / Iron Man. He does absolutely nail the wisecracking mercenary scenes and the fourth wall humor, and just going relentless and brutally honest, but I feel like he deserves more credit in the emotional scenes. Just after his face gets messed up and disfigured, and him wanting to go to Vanessa but he just can't, and there's one scene where he tries to reunite with Vanessa after the experiment, and not a single word, and it's a very well done scene. And this was the movie to launch Ryan Reynolds back to popularity. Because before Deadpool, he did have a string of critically panned movies and box office bombs such as Green Lantern, and anyone remember R.I.P.D.? Oh god, yeah, thank god he got this Deadpool made for so long. And just from the brilliant opening credits, I knew I was gonna have a blast with this movie. It's just like starring God's perfect idiots, written by assholes, just love it, just so creative and hilarious. And followed by the highway scene and the 12 bullet sequence. And I just love how this movie is edited in a non-linear story. And that just makes it more entertaining and not just taking its time. It's like, come on, get to the Deadpool stuff already. It just gives you this stuff and makes it entertaining right from the jump. And with the action scenes in this movie, Tim Miller, who wasn't known for much before this movie, he has really shown to be a capable director for this movie and did a great job handling his first blockbuster movie here. This movie was a creative mix of a romance movie, and this movie came out on Valentine's Day weekend, an action revenge film, a raunchy comedy, and a superhero origin story, and it works on all of those. Francis, or Ajax, was a strong villain here. He may not have a lot of depth, but I do think he works well for this movie being Deadpool's target for revenge. And you definitely want to see Deadpool kill this guy as soon as possible. And oh my god, just Deadpool going on hunt, just killing those guys, just like, where's Francis? Where's Francis? And oh my god, when he was running on the Zamboni, that cracked me up. Tell me where your boss is, or you're gonna die in 5 minutes. Just freaking funny, man. Oh, and in the climax, I will never forget seeing this movie in a huge crowd. When he uses those corpses to spell Francis, my audience cheered at that moment. Just, oh my god. And I loved how unique this movie was at the time, with its self-awareness, making jabs at other superhero movies and Ryan Reynolds' career, such as X-Men Origins Wolverine and Green Lantern. This movie is hilarious, exciting, and surprisingly has good heart to it. Still a blast, and would be my pick for my second favorite superhero movie of 2016 behind Captain America Civil War, and would be in my top 10 favorite films of 2016. Still great, this movie became a box office hit and was nominated for 2 Golden Globes, Best Picture, Musical, or Comedy, and Ryan Reynolds Best Actor in a Comedy, but ended up losing both to La La Land. I think it deserved those 2 awards. But still, Deadpool, awesome start to the Deadpool movies. It was such a clever, brilliant, and entertaining spin-off in the X-Men franchise. Coming in at number 2 is X-Men Days of Future Past. This movie was quite a risky challenge for the X-Men franchise, doing a lot here from combining the cast of First Class and the old cast, bringing back Bryan Singer. Less said about him as a person, the better, to come back to direct this movie. After turning down to direct The Last Stand to do Superman Returns, I don't think that was the best option, because Superman Returns is eh. And also, this is a time travel movie, and this movie could have easily fell flat and be an overstuffed mess, but this movie still works. It accomplishes so much, and it's one of the best X-Men films that's funny, clever, engaging, and exhilarating. What works about Days of Future Past is the story, where you get attached to these characters and understand their motivations and where they're coming from. And I feel like that works well about the best X-Men films that are story and character driven, that really makes you get attached to them. And the story here actually makes sense. There's a reason for so much in this movie. There's a reason why they send Wolverine back in time. And I like how a lot of things were explained. Okay, if they send Wolverine back in time to a younger Professor X, would he still have his powers back then? Actually, he doesn't have his powers back in 1973, because Beast gave him a cure that would make him walk again, but it would also take away his powers, so he wouldn't use his powers on Logan. It's like, okay, that makes sense. And earlier, Mystique tried to stop the war with the Sentinels by killing the Creator. That would end everything, right? No, it wouldn't. They would find a way to extract the mutant DNA to make the Sentinels stronger, so no, it wouldn't. I was like, okay, I buy that. Everything is well explained in this movie, and it's smart and clever. And it also works with a strong balance of these characters. The ones we're with in the future with the older characters, and going back in time to 1973 with the First Class characters. And it gives enough time to give each character the spotlight and something to do here, to where it avoids being an overstuffed mess and no one is sidelined too much here. And as for the returning cast, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen are as terrific as ever, and Hugh Jackman is still funny, charismatic, and badass as Wolverine as always. And as for the First Class actors, they are also terrific here. Michael Fassbender is fantastic. Nicholas Hoult is great. Jennifer Lawrence is amazing, getting more of a chance to shine as Mystique and having a bit of Rebecca Romijn from the first 3 movies in her. But who actually gives my favorite performance in Days of Future Past is actually James McAvoy. And I would say this movie is his best performance as Charles Xavier. Just seeing where he was in First Class as this charming, intelligent leader to this more vulnerable and broken human being who has been through a lot. And just McAvoy has so many phenomenally acted scenes in this movie that really made me care about his younger Charles Xavier. And who was a surprisingly awesome addition was Evan Peters as Quicksilver. Just how funny and charismatic he is, and especially the time in a bottle sequence. That was definitely one of the biggest highlights in the movie. I just remember seeing this movie in theaters and just loving that sequence. I was like, yep, I love this character. Sad he didn't have enough screen time, but thankfully he got a bigger role in X-Men Apocalypse. And I actually thought Peter Dinklage made for a good villain, and he wasn't really like a typical villain who just hated mutants and wanted the world to end. He was trying to do some good, but with his creation with the Sentinels and the destruction they caused, that wasn't really his motivation. The action scenes are great, the visual effects are fantastic. This movie is consistently engaging from beginning to end. And this is my second favorite superhero film of 2014, just right behind Captain America: The Winter Soldier for me. And my god, 2014 was a banner year for comic book movies. Well, Amazing Spider-Man 2 was but still, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, this, Guardians of the Galaxy, what a terrific year for the superhero genre and film in general too. And it was also in my top 10 favorite films of 2014. X-Men Days of Future Past, Achieve the Impossible, and this and Avengers Endgame are the best time travel superhero movies, and this movie is still fantastic. And yet, it's the number 2 movie on the list. What could be number 1? Well, we're right here to the number 1 spot. Let's do it. And at number 1, my pick for the best X-Men movie is, hands down, Logan. This being the 3rd Wolverine spin-off movie, and was originally supposed to be Hugh Jackman's swan song as this character. I was like, could this be the best Wolverine movie? Could it be better than The Wolverine? And the same director, James Mangold, returning to direct this one, and this one was going to be rated R, and I remember hearing about this, I was like, okay, let's see a trailer. And the trailer came out and blew me away. That is one of my favorite teaser trailers of all time. The one with Hurt by Johnny Cash in it. And I was wondering, was that song in there because James Mangold directed Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash biopic, which is an excellent movie you should definitely check out. And I just love the dark Western vibe I was seeing from the trailer. I was like, okay, this is one of my most anticipated films of the year. This should be an amazing conclusion for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. And when I saw it in theaters, just wow, what an incredible and satisfying swan song this film was for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. 17 years of playing this character leading up to this film. It was so worthwhile, emotional, compelling, engaging, and just an incredible, not only superhero film, but film in general. And James Mangold did a good job with The Wolverine, but in Logan, he stepped it up here. By bringing a unique vision to Logan, this movie felt like a mix of the Western vibe of Hell or High Water, mixed in with the story of children and men. Plus, he got a much stronger grasp at directing the action scenes in this movie, and mostly telling a dark and grim story that's engaging. And I've been saying it so many times throughout this video, you just can't deny it for these movies, but in Logan, Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart in Logan give their career best performances as the characters. They absolutely gave it their all here, and they knew how special this film was and really wanted to do their absolute best. And it's quite depressing to see these two characters where they are now, getting older and close to dying and feeling hopeless. Charles Xavier having these seizures, Logan trying to provide for him, just a tragedy they have went through with their old school, and just seeing these two characters really old is just so heartbreaking to watch. There are just so many scenes with them that are just phenomenally acted. Plenty of heartbreaking scenes and monologues from these two. And for Patrick Stewart, there is one monologue scene he has where he assumes he's talking to Logan, and I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't seen this movie. My god, just what an amazing monologue delivered by Stewart there, and I don't care what anyone says. I don't care if it's a superhero movie or not. I think Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart deserve Oscar nominations for their performances. But Daphne Keane as Laura, or X-23, is a huge standout. She is stellar in this movie, and What a find on directors. This is actually one of my favorite child performances. Just how much she shines in the first half of this movie with no dialogue and just her facial expressions. And you can just tell by her face how much pain and torture she has been through. And it's not easy for a child actress to do so much with her facial expressions, but she excels here. Plus, she is a total badass in the action scenes. And that definitely proves in that one action scene, the limo with Pierce and his men. Love that scene. And when she tosses that decapitated head, I was like, shit's going down. And not only is she a total badass in the action scene, but the ending of this movie, dramatically, her acting was terrific. Now, this is the first Wolverine movie to finally be rated R, and I could have just used the R rating for just blood or saying F-bombs, but I feel like there's more to it than that. Yes, this movie is very violent. It's the most brutal and violent X-Men film to date, but I feel like this R rating does contribute to how dark, grim, and hopeless this film is. With set in the future and so many mutants wiped out, it really does contribute with the tone of this movie. And the action here is terrific, from the limo chase, the one hotel chase where Charles Xavier is having a seizure and Logan is just trying to get to him and he's just struggling to and just like stabs those guys. Just love that scene. And the forest fight, it's all fantastic. And that leads to the ending of this movie is one of the saddest, I wouldn't say superhero movie death scenes, but endings in general that just made me cry on repeat viewings. 17 years leading to that moment was very powerful. They just got it right. The right impact, the right emotions, the perfect acting, just beautifully done. And the final shot is actually my favorite final shot of the X-Men franchise. Just a perfect way to end this film. Now, sure, Hugh Jackman did come back as Wolverine 7 years later in Deadpool and Wolverine, and in that movie, his return did make sense for the film. And in the opening scene of that movie with ba ba ba, I don't feel like it impacted this film's ending too much. I feel like I still can be moved by this ending and still enjoy that opening sequence, and that would be like a Deadpool thing to do if you remember the opening scene in Deadpool and Wolverine. Just, oh, that was an awesome opening scene, but I loved it. And James Mangold, I still think he does good work after this movie. Ford v Ferrari, great movie. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I remember giving that movie a mildly positive review when it came out. I was like, yeah, that was good, but not great. But a year later, I did watch that movie again, and my thoughts have definitely changed. I just think it's a mixed bag of a movie. I don't hate it, but I just find that movie to be a huge disappointment and could have been so much better, and I would change my grade to a C+. But he also recently did A Complete Unknown, which was a pretty good biopic movie, so definitely check that movie out. Logan is altogether my favorite R-rated comic book film, my favorite comic book film of 2017, hands down, and my top 5 favorite films of 2017. I just think it's a perfect superhero movie, a perfect Wolverine movie. I absolutely love this movie. 10 out of freaking 10, A+ movie. To everyone involved in the cast and crew of Logan, well done. And now we're done with the top 5 best. Now to the worst. Now, I have 2 picks for what I think is the worst X-Men film, my runner-up, and my number 1 pick. To me, I think this is my runner-up for the worst X-Men film, but I can see why some people would choose this as the worst X-Men movie. But X-Men Origins Wolverine, this movie was massively disappointing, and this was the first Wolverine solo movie, and this should have been awesome, but this sucked. Now, I'll give it credit, of course. Hugh Jackman always does a great job as Wolverine, and he still gives it his all in this movie, even if it's completely crap. And I actually like Liev Schreiber as Sabretooth in this movie. I felt like he was trying. And Ryan Reynolds did have a few funny moments early on in the film before Deadpool, but that wasn't really his fault, honestly. But what went wrong with this movie? The action is so absurd and ludicrous. And just to see where Wolverine just launches up to the helicopter, my god, that looked ridiculous. And the CGI too, my god. For a movie that's over a decade old, the CGI has aged horribly. And those CGI claws, really? God. Just does a poor job at handling these characters, like the Blob just got big and ate a lot. Did you just call me Blob? Gambit felt like a last-minute addition in this movie, and he is very underused in this movie. And this movie shoehorns in Cyclops' origins. So I was like, do we really need to see his origins too? This movie just messes with the continuity of the previous movies. I was like, this doesn't really tie in that Wolverine and Sabretooth are brothers, really? And one last thing, yeah, Deadpool. Just, what were they thinking right there? Deadpool, known as the Merc with a mouth, and just sewn his mouth shut? And I was like, no, this is not Deadpool. And I remember seeing this movie in theaters in 2009. Just when I first saw that, I was like, I don't like this at all. This is not working for me. And back then I didn't know about Deadpool. But many years later, I looked into the Deadpool character. Yeah, I knew why fans were pissed off. Just still a crappy movie and not the worst X-Men film to me. This was the worst until 10 years later. My pick for the worst X-Men movie is X-Men Dark Phoenix. This right here was the most trivial, frivolous, and unnecessary film in the X-Men franchise that was dead on arrival. This was Fox's second attempt at the Phoenix Saga after The Last Stand did do a good job with that story. And I'm someone who can get some enjoyment from The Last Stand. I don't think it's that bad of a movie, honestly. I still think there's much to enjoy from that movie, from the action, effects, and I do like seeing the different sides of the conflict with the mutant cure, different sides of why would they take the cure and why would they be against the cure. And plus, Kelsey Grammer as Beast, he was a huge standout. He was perfect casting for Beast. But Dark Phoenix right here did so much wrong. The cast really weren't on their A-game here and phoned in performances, and it's such a shame. James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender are terrific actors, and this was their final X-Men movie. They deserve so much better than this. And Jennifer Lawrence, she looked like she did not give a single shit at all in this movie, and clearly did not look like she wanted to be there at all. Oh my god, this has some of the worst dialogue in the X-Men franchise. Hey Charles, let's be called X-Women. Shut up! The effects are subpar, the direction is nothing to write home about, the action is tensionless and forgettable, and this movie just lacks any emotional depth where it just feels like a rushed product that was like, let's just do the Phoenix Saga story again. And just the ending of this movie, I hate this ending. It is a horrible ending. Just shows that the filmmakers had no idea what they were doing with this movie. It was like, wait, this just messes with the continuity of the other movies. How does this tie into that? How does this tie into that? Just, what are you even doing here? Terrible way to end this franchise. Come on. This is the most boring, unexciting, and frustrating X-Men film that just easily my pick for the worst X-Men movie, and I want to pretend this movie just doesn't exist. And that right there is my pick for the top 5 best X-Men films and my pick for the worst. I'm happy to do this list and being able to reminisce these movies and the great memories. And I'm curious about the future of the X-Men and the MCU, and hopefully it'll be good hands under the Thunderbolts director. It would be a tough act to follow, but I do hope for the best. So I would like to hear from you guys. What are your top 5 favorite X-Men films? Do you want to rank them all, top 5, or your number 1 pick? Let me know in the comments below. Did you enjoy this top 5 list and want to see more videos like this in the future? If yes, please hit that like and subscribe button if you're new here, and don't forget that notification bell for my next upload in the future. It really means a lot. My social media links are in the description down below. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok, and if you'd like to see my render reviews, I do have a letterboxd as well, so if you'd like to follow me on there. And until the next video, I'm Jack Benner, and look forward to another movie review.